Okay, hello. So I'm just going to go back over what we did at the end of class on Friday. Okay, so we finished off on Friday about how family has changed over the last maybe 120 years or so as regards structure and, I've gone blank here now. So structure, uh, oh, marriage, size of and amount of children, standard of living, and roles. Okay, and as you'll see, and I'm always harping on, the role of women in society has completely changed. So we finished off then with the three headings. We're looking at social change, which is to do with people; economic change, to do with finance and money; and technological change, is to do with the advancement of technology and how that has affected life on family. Okay, so we did read marital breakdown, and 2016 is the most recent figures here. Okay, the census is where we get our figures from, so they have processed and published the latest figures. Okay, so 96 was when the Divorce Act came in for the second referendum by 1%. And marital breakdown, the whole kind of rigmarole of, oh my lord, that's gone. Okay. It's far more socially acceptable for a marriage to break down. It's sad, obviously, and it has repercussions for a lot of people, but it's far more socially acceptable. It wouldn't be the scandal it was in the past. Okay. So liberal means, wider thinking, and secular means not reliant on the church, as we said on Friday. It is sort of socially acceptable then to separate or divorce if a couple no longer wishes to remain together. Okay, and this means then that there has been an increase in the number of one parent and blended families. So it's the changing role of women. And again, I'm not a raging feminist or anything, but it's a fact that women's role in society has changed so much and has affected society in a big way. Okay, so I have this infographic here. All right, and it was published there in April last year. Okay, so we were talking about educational achievement and attainment, etc. So 59.9%, just under 60% of women aged between 25 and 34 have a third level qualification, compared to 52.2% of men. Okay, so nowadays, from the 1960s, think of 1970s up to 1980, you had to leave your job if you became engaged, etc. We've turned it on its head. So more women are going to third level than men. From the 1920s to 2012, life expectancy at birth increased from 57.9. So in the 1920s, a woman was expected to live a long life up until just under 58 years of age, and now it is 82.8 years for a female. And back in the 20s of last century, for a man, it was 57.4 years, and up to 78.4 for males now. And that's going to change again. They reckon by 2040, men will be living till 81, and women, I think, until 84, 85. And that's due to better healthcare, better diets. Life isn't as hard as it was back then, etc. Between 2014 and 2018, female representation in the Dáil, so the amount of lady TDs, and look how low it still is, but it has come up from 16.3% to 22.2. All right. So they've added in 4 years, even they've added an extra 10 TDs, and hopefully that will increase. Okay, we make up roughly 50% of society, so surely we should make up 50% of the representation of us at government level. 52.8% of men work for 40 hours or more each week, whereas women, 24.7% of women. Okay, that could be childcare. It could be many factors. The average age that women in Ireland gave birth to their first child increased from 27.4 years in 2000. So in 20 years, it's gone up around about 4 years to 31.1 years in 2019. And 11.3% of sentenced committals to prison in 2018 were women. Okay, so of all the people that go to prison, roughly 11.3% of them are women. Okay, so that's just a snapshot of women's role in society at the minute. Okay, so more women are advancing to third level education, as we saw here. There's more educational opportunities for us. It has improved their career prospects, causing many women to shift roles. Okay, so we know that women are changing. They're not just staying at home, and if they want to, that's fantastic. But there is a changing face to society. So families tend to be smaller because women are having fewer children. Some families, role reversal have occurred. The men stay at home and the women go out working. And in dual income households where there's two incomes, symmetrical roles that they mirror each other, so household shares tasks are shared equally between partners. Now, same-sex marriage. This is groundbreaking. We were the world's first country to bring in same-sex marriage by vote. There were other countries in the world that had put forward same-sex marriage, but it was done without a referendum. This was the first time in the world that people voted that same-sex marriage and that homosexual couples were given the same rights as heterosexual couples. So this introduction of the Children and Family Relations Act, first in 2015, enabled same-sex couples to jointly adopt children. Of that, they weren't allowed. Previously, only one person could become the legal adoptive parent. So if there was a couple, two men, two women who wanted to adopt, only one of them could actually legally adopt. This was followed by the Marriage Act in 2015, which legalised same-sex marriage in Ireland, allowing two people of the same sex to marry and benefit from the same status, I should say, under the Constitution as couples of the opposite sex. So the introduction of these acts has resulted in a more inclusive and tolerant society. To a certain extent, there's still a lot of homophobia, I think, out there, sadly. But we are willing to acknowledge the greater variety of family forms, okay, that we were told about in the past. So how has family structure changed? Children may now legally have two adoptive parents of the same sex, and families may now legally be headed by married couples of the same sex too. So did you know in 2016 there were 6,034 same-sex couples, an increase of nearly 50% since 2011. Another reason that there may be such a big increase is that people were not as maybe hesitant to write down on the census that they were in a same-sex couple due to fear of perhaps, people being at them perhaps as well. So, and that again comes back to inclusive and tolerant society. Okay, so not that there was 50% suddenly more same-sex couples, it may they just have been hesitant to state that they were. Now, economic changes, that's our social changes, how people have changed and family. Economic changes. So the first change that has affected the family is the high cost of living. All right, so an increase in the cost of living has left Ireland in the top 10 most expensive countries in the world to reside. So therefore, many families must budget carefully to meet needs such as rent, food, and childcare. And after these needs have been met even, there is often little money left for families, especially if you're on a low income. So how has this affected the family? So the number of dual income families, two people working outside the home, has increased because both parents need to work to earn sufficient income to meet their needs. Families have fewer children because of the high costs of childcare. And stress and worry surrounding finances within the family are increased. And in severe cases, this could lead to marital breakdown. The number one cause of marital arguments, or any arguments, you don't have to be married, is money. It was statistically proven there over the years, okay? So again, we are in the middle of a COVID situation. The PUP, the unemployment benefit of $350 a week, people are, so this may lead them to stress about meeting bills if they're used to a higher wage. There was a recession back in 2007. Again, it put a lot of stress on families as well. So let's have a look at this living wage. And what is it? It's in the new lot, okay? A living wage, you can underline, is the amount an individual needs to earn, which covers the basic costs of living. Will you underline or highlight that? So the minimum wage doesn't necessarily mean a living wage. The minimum wage may not be enough to allow you to cover your needs and your basic costs of living. In 2019, the living wage in Ireland was estimated to be $12.30 an hour. So that was the minimum you needed to earn to live and meet your needs in Ireland. But the national minimum age for adults aged 20 and over was only $9.80. So there was a gap there of $2.50 roughly, I think. So that is a big thing. And Aldi and Lidl and a few other companies of that have undertaken to meet the living wage, no matter what it is, which is a very progressive thing to do. Okay, and more, again, though, I mean, if you're under pressure yourself with business, it's very hard to pay out that kind of money on wages if you only have to pay them the minimum wage. Okay, so that's another way. Economy has changed the family. The economy itself, all right, when the Irish economy was in recession back in 2008, excuse me, I've lost the train of thought. 2007 until 2012, there was a few years of really hard living. You were being quite young at the time. Perhaps you may not have too much recollection of it. Unemployment rates were dreadfully high. So back in 2003, 2004, unemployment rates were roughly, like, I think it was 3.4%, which was amazing. That only 3.4% of the economy were out of work. And suddenly then it went up to 15% in 2012. I remember that it was January, I think, 2012, and it was the highest ever it had ever been. And this put a huge financial strain on families. But in recent times, the Irish economy has been in recovery and unemployment rates have begun to steadily drop. So in 2019, 5.3% only was the unemployment rate. So people who are willing and able to work and weren't able to get employment, that's what that 5.3% is. But that's September 2019. COVID happened then, okay? And we are back nearly to square one. It's going to be very hard for the economy to bounce back from this. I'm just reading there this morning that Micheál Martin was on an English radio station and saying, like, on March 5th, nothing is really going to open that will make a massive difference. It's going to be very cautious and very staggered in its opening. So this has allowed now, again, pre-COVID, it allowed many unemployed people to re-enter the workplace and it move away from your social welfare payments. So how did this affect the family structure? Because there was an increase in dual income families, or there is an increase in dual income families because more people were working, and there was a reduced number of families reliant on social welfare payments, such as the dole, we call it, job seekers benefit, to meet basic needs. Okay, but again, this PUP, the PUP, which is for people who are out of work due to COVID, that's like, really, we're going to be paying this off. I think we borrowed 20 billion alone in 2020 to get over this COVID at the minute. So how much time? Yeah, we're doing all right. So I'll finish off here on this one with state benefits. How has this affected the family structure? So this is the dole, as we call it, child benefit, etc. They weren't available to people until really the 1960s, 1970s. So the state provides social welfare payments such as the job seekers allowance or supplementary welfare allowance, which supplements a person's income, helps it, to unemployed families struggling to pay for basic needs. And one-parent families can obtain the one-parent family payment. Okay, so that's it's not a separate payment, but it is a specific payment, I should say, for one-parent families. So how has this affected family structure? It enables one-parent or unemployed families to provide for their children's basic needs. It reduces stress and worry surrounding finances among one-parent families and unemployed families, which enhances stability. Okay, so I am going to leave it at that for today. Okay, I'm going to assign you some homework as well then in the chat, and I will talk to you on Tuesday. Okay, mind yourselves.